I'm Aaron here in the Bowtie Treasure Studio. Happy Tuesday night. I have this console table behind me that is ready for a few next steps, and I'm going to share as many of them with you as I can. So as you start watching or pop in, say hi. Let me know where you're watching from, or let me know you're watching on replay. That's always great too. I forgot to take a before picture of this table, but when I bought this table, I painted something like it before, and I actually tested to see if I could take the legs apart before I bought it, because it's much easier to paint the flat surfaces of the shelf when you take the legs off, because then you're just dealing with a flat surface all the way across. So this is me with it in my studio after taking the legs apart. But yeah, that's what we're working on. And let me just show you, this is what I'm talking about. So these two pieces actually, this is where the shelf would go. But anytime, if this was in that table, I would have to paint around the leg, and that's a pain. So this is actually 2 coats of white bonding boss. It has no chalk mineral paint yet on it, so I thought we could paint that together briefly. And then the top is where I'm going to also be, on this section here, I'm going to use the FILIGREE silkscreen stencil. And so I think it would be really great to put this in there. So I'll challenge myself to do that live with you on this video. This surface has not been painted 2 coats. I've done 2 coats in here, so just different stages of the project, and we'll try and take a few minutes just to kind of bring everything else up to the next level. First thing I want to do, and I don't want to ever forget that we've got people that are watching maybe for the first time or new to chalk painting, so as much as we can make this advanced painting hour, I don't want to forget the new folks. And if you're new to chalk painting, we'd like to know that as well. But this is going to be, I chose 2 colors that were very close in value. I have Sawmill Gravy, and I also have French Linen. I just want that stencil to be just slightly noticeable, not prominent. Of course, you can choose whatever color you want. And I also didn't want to do white on this project, so I think the 2 neutral colors are going to do really well for somewhat of a neutral home decor home, if you will. Let me grab a mini. I've got my Mr. bottle handy. Always like to have that handy when I'm painting. And just wanted to show you how it's just so much easier, to me, it's so much easier to paint these legs off the table than on. And again, I wouldn't have done it if they didn't easily just unscrew. You know, if they were permanently attached, okay, I would just paint around them, but anytime I can take these off. So that just tells you that this table is not antique, of course, obviously if it's got MDF, but it is a traditional or modern style. It's a nice piece. And I got it at an estate sale for a good price, so I'll paint it and flip it's wrong, not the right word, but I'll put it in my booth and someone else will enjoy the new look, because the old look's definitely very dated, and I don't want that going back and going out for sale. So at this point, I'm really focusing on just getting good coverage, and then also keeping it smooth. I'm definitely not trying to get everything in one coat. So whenever you're putting your first coat on, you're looking for smooth paint. You're not trying to get it all done in one coat. If you are, you're probably going to have thicker paint, and that can be frustrating to many people. So you can see me doing a lot of what I would call smoothing strokes. Once you get the paint on, come back and smooth it out. That's really the key. And if your paint ever feels too sticky, then give your brush a light mist, or give your paint a light mist, whatever works best for the stage you're in. And here I am going horizontally. Notice I'm hanging onto the screw, so I don't really have to touch the piece. And then again, back with smoothing out strokes. I'm not too concerned about getting the parts that's going to be not seen, but if you obsessed with that kind of thing, then go ahead and get some more paint. But that's one leg, and I'll let that dry. And all I'm doing is just setting this down. I've got a piece of wood on the other end. I had more room, but when I decided to go live, I'm like, I'm gonna get all this on one Lazy Susan so I can spin this around, and I think that would be really good. Let me, let's do one more. I don't want to overdo and paint 4 of these and bore you to death, but that's what I feel like I'd be doing, although I'm sure I'm not. So I'm just going to lay those down there, and I probably will have to touch them up where they're touching the base, but that's all right. So that's how I would do the legs. I think for the next demonstration, what I'd like to do is feature painting the flat surface. So I've done 1 coat of this, and then I took a sanding pad. You can get these from Dixie Belle, and I just did a light sanding to get rid of any high points, and I had one right here, so I'm glad I sanded it. Might even do a little bit more. You know, sometimes you get pieces of paint in there that just, you want to be smooth. Then give it a light wipe, which I've already done. The next thing I'd like to do is decide if it needs misting, and in this case, I'm going to go ahead and mist it. And I don't get too far, you know, I could mist the whole tabletop, but that doesn't really help so much. Now on the side, this is the bottom underneath, and I probably will come back maybe with a silk and just touch up the bottom because it's black. So I'm going to get as far as I can underneath, and then I'll clean it up later on. But notice how I'm going around the lip first. This to me is a lot smoother of a process, but then quickly come back and straighten that brush stroke out. You don't want to have a line because you put too much paint there. So that's how I paint most of my edges. So you see how I'm kind of doing parallel strokes now. And then those refined strokes are much lighter. Like right now I'm putting maybe more of a 80% pressure to get that paint down. But when you come back, lighten that pressure up and just let those synthetic bristles give you a nice smooth finish. Be careful with your misting, because if you mist over your paint, you could leave spots. So this is where I was saying you might want to mist your brush instead. Okay, so that's looking really good. Now I'm about to step into light. So let me, I forget I have this thing on the Lazy Susan, silly me. So let's move it around and let's repeat what I did on the other side. So I'm going to paint mostly the edge. Not too worried about the bottom, I'll clean that up later. And then follow the contour around. And now we'll come back and just quickly straighten out those strokes. Paint on the other end sort of getting tacky, so you don't want to go all the way across. Not looking to put a ton of paint on. And now we're going to do a refining stroke. Just light pressure, just to get all those brush strokes going the same. Now, I do need to paint this lip, but because my legs are there, I'm not going to do that. I'll come back and clean that up, but I do need to do the back of that. So that's how I would handle the top of that piece. Okay, so as you can imagine, these are 9x8 sheets, and that's too big for my space. I'm going to sacrifice this piece to accommodate my width, because I don't want to bend it like this. So I'm okay with that. All I need to do is determine where I want to cut it. And so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to eyeball this and put a mark, because I have to my right a cutting board right there. And I want a nice straight line, so let me, it's not normally here, but it's going to be here today. hopefully I got it close. The other thing I'll probably need to trim is the edge. And what it's supposed to do is this end connects to this end. We're going to rely on that big time. So let me trim those off. Now, if you've not used silkscreen before, these are stickers, the reusable stickers, if you will. And they have a backer. You want to hang on to this. Don't throw that away. And when you're done, for me, I'll probably use this twice. And then if I'm here at the house, I probably would do 2 sections, clean it. Tomorrow I'll do 2 more sections. Because you start getting paint in here, it's going to start leaking. Bleeding is the wrong word, but seeping out. We'll do as much as we can. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the top. We're going to get it as close. I'm not putting it on this lip. And so that's what I'm looking for right there, is having that right in that space. I think that's going to work great. Now the next thing that I like to use, and it's not required to have it, is I like to use the thingamajig. You can use a brush, and you can use, oftentimes the product comes with a card, and it's in the package, but there's a card that comes in here that allows you to squeegee the paint on. We're going to use the thingamajig because, one, I do like how it has different sizes. I mean, you can use the long, short. This side's longer than those two, so it just gives you options. Okay, we could go this way, but I'm going to probably, and I love how I can use the corner and get right in there. We're going to use French linen. I mentioned before that I want this pattern to be very close in value is the word I would use. Value is more like how dark or light something is. And so you can see it's probably going to be a little grayer, warmer. It's a warm gray, but let's give it a try. Push it down. So notice how I'm scraping the paint in there. I'm most likely going to have some touch-ups to do. That's okay. I've got enough small brushes and stuff. Like right now I'm getting it on the edge, and I'm willing to concede a little bit of touch-up to get the result I'm looking for. So you're just squeegeeing it in there and scrape off any excess. You'll eventually use all that in there. Try and give you all a different angle if I can. There's a good chance that I'm squeegeeing too much paint in there. Unfortunately, you won't know till you know. When you take this off, do not be cautious, of course. You don't want to go off the stencil. You'll have to touch it up before you proceed. So I'm almost done using all that paint I had, so I'm gonna move you guys around again. And I'm going to get where I can see the bottom a little bit better. Now I could have faded this out so that the pattern doesn't continue, but I don't think it would look right if I faded it out. All right, I think that's good enough. I say that. We're gonna find out. But you can see, maybe you can see, let me spin this around. You can see I've got some goobers on the side, and it might be good to at least thin that out so I'm not dealing with raised thick paint. I really, you know, the other thing I could have done, I didn't think about it, but I could have taped that off. If you really don't want to touch up, taping off would definitely be another option, so I didn't think about that. All right, let me get my little like knife thing so I can get underneath that stencil, and we'll do our big reveal. All right, I didn't get enough paint down here. We're gonna try that again. So I hope this is only a rare situation where this corner didn't get it, but It isn't. Worst case scenario. We like to have worst case scenarios. We'll paint over and start over. Yeah, see, I can already see I've put a little extra color in some places and not others. But I'm liking the fact that it's not perfect, to be honest with you. I think the cool thing about this is that it can play into the option of, we can make this somewhat distressed, but as it dries, it's probably going to dry closer to this value than the dark value, but I'm liking how that's turning out. So you can see, I don't know if you can see through the stencil, probably not. There's still some paints, we would call that in the silk screen holes. So that what I don't want to do is I don't want to put this wet stencil on this wet paint and down there. So this is where you're just going to have to work your way around. But when it's all said and done, that entire piece and all the way around, I want it to have that stencil, and I think that's going to be really great. So normally what you do is you take this now and you go to the sink, get some warm water, maybe a light sponge, and then just wash it off. You're not trying to rigorously clean it, but you definitely want to get the paint out of those holes so you can reuse it again. And then just put it back on that cardboard. Usually you put the sticky side facing up and let it dry like overnight, or give it a few hours, and then you're ready to use it again. So yeah, pretty simple live tonight, just taking you along the process of how this table came together. So when you see the finished results, you know how I painted it, how I stenciled it, and I think it's going to come together really well. And I'll also top coat it in pieces as well. I think that's the secret of why I took it apart, because the top coat, that flat surface can be so much easier. I don't have to dodge the legs at all. So anyways, nice and short and sweet tonight. Hope you enjoyed that, and if you did, let me know in the comments what you think. Until next time, I'm Aaron here in the Bowtie Treasure Studio. Y'all be good, be creative, and we'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.
That's the end of the show. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell before you go. Bye.